Hey everybody, it's John, and I got a controversial one for you today. I know there's a lot of discussion about pistols versus revolvers for self-defense use. There's a couple of myths about revolvers, maybe some myths as well about semi-auto pistols. Let's talk about which one's better for personal defense. After thorough testing, I recently changed my everyday OC spray to Palm Personal Defense Spray. It's nasty stuff and I recommend it highly. Okay, so mea culpa. This one is prompted by the fact that I started a bit of a Donnybrook on social media in my personal Facebook not too long ago. I have this habit, and one of the things that I do is every time I am standing in a firearms training class, whether that's as a student or the instructor, I take note of every gun on the line, and then I note any problems that we had with any of the guns. And so we go back and we say, okay, wait a minute. We had 18 guns on the line today. Here's all the guns that we had. Here were the problems that we had with the guns. And I took Tom Gibbons and Rangemaster's Master Firearms Instructor class in November, and we had a full day of revolver use. And we went old school, right? We jokingly called it 1811 day, joking reference to how old they are. And we had 18 guns on the line, and I noted of those 18 guns, we had 5 guns go down really, really hard, like hard enough that the gun got put away and then a new gun got put in its place until such time as we could get it to a gunsmith. Now, that did cause a little bit of fracas. I made it as a shareable kind of public thing. I don't know, maybe I'll put a link in the description to it or whatever. But it did cause some controversy, specifically with some folks who maybe are a little bit older, been around when cops were still carrying revolvers, and caused a little bit of hate and discontent. Now, this happens to be the revolver that I shot in that class. It's a Smith & Wesson Model 19. Beautiful gun, and it was loaned to me by my friend Phil Wong. You can see it's got a set of Crimson Trace laser grips that I didn't use because I'm left-handed, and that didn't really work for me very well, but really nice gun with a well-tuned trigger, and this particular gun ran great. Now, what I said in that particular class was that out of 18 students on the line, that we had 5 guns go down incredibly hard. Now, upon a little bit more further review, at least one of those was a significant issue of ammunition, that the ammo that got put in the gun was jamming up the cylinder pretty good. And but that ended up being an ammo thing because there was like little stuff stuck to the ammo. So I'm not going to consider that one. That one we could call an ammo issue. And so either 3 or 4, depending on kind of how you want to, establish problems, was it the gun or ammo or whatever, of those guns went down crazy hard. I say between 3 or 4 because one of them had a squib that got stuck in the forcing cone. And so that gun was completely locked up. And it takes a little special something to get the bullet out of the forcing cone and back into the chamber. Whereas with a semi-automatic pistol, if you got a squib in there, you strip the gun, you take the barrel out, tap it out much more easily than you would here. Both of those would have been a fight-stopping malfunction, though, for a semi-auto or for a revolver. Just takes a little bit more to get it back out of a revolver correctly. So if we say, that's probably not just for revolvers or not the fault of the revolver, then we had 3 out of 18. As opposed to most semi-automatic pistol classes where, if we have a malfunction in a gun, we have something that, there was a bent feed lip on a magazine, or we had other problems in the gun, then that is almost always a magazine-related issue. The gun is probably still running fine, or maybe the gun just needs to be lubed up because it's super dry or something like that. So they're back in the fight and back in the class pretty quickly. Whereas with these revolvers, the 3 that were done, they were done. I mean, done for the day. Like, take that back to the gunsmith, done. So that was what I reported. And like I say, it caused some controversy. So that kind of speaks to one of the challenges that I see for personal defense with the revolver. If you go and actually train with a revolver for any significant amount of time, you're going to find a couple of things with them. Number one is reliability. Now, there's this thing out there, this myth of revolver reliability, that you kind of hear this thing, 6 for sure. And the reason that you have a revolver for personal defense is that they're so reliable, is that they're far more reliable than semi-automatic pistols. And quite frankly, that's just a myth. Now, I'm not saying that a good, well-built revolver is not reliable. Generally speaking, if you have a well-built revolver, you have, something like this, a Smith & Wesson 19, which is a high-quality gun. This one's been looked over by a very competent gunsmith and tuned adequately. The trigger on it is really, really good. It's a really great gun. But, and this guy ran all day, 300 rounds. I didn't have any problems other than the fact we had some ammo problems. I was running some stuff there that a bunch of people were having light strike issues or really hard primer issues. So that's not gun related. But, you know, if you have a well-built revolver, it'll probably run. But, you know, if you go and look at police qualifications all the way through the time of revolvers, in a 50 round qualification, they would have a time in the middle where they would clean the revolver in the middle of their police qualification. And the reason for that is that when you take this revolver apart, you got this star here, right? So the way that you get the ammo out of a revolver, especially if you're doing it quickly or whatever, you shoot the gun, you open the cylinder, hold the gun straight up and down. So this is the way that you do that. Again, you put 2 fingers in there. Now you might put that here, whatever, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit straight down on the extractor, and that extractor then will push that star down, and that'll send all the rounds down. Now, if you do that off at all, if you're not straight up and down when you do that, then what can happen is you can get grains of powder up under this. And if you get any grains of powder up under this, it won't seat all the way. That'll lock the cylinder up completely dead, done, dead, completely dead. So what we would see, and what we see you guys doing all the time, is that in the middle, they get a toothbrush and work on that. After 25 rounds or so, they would do that. Another thing that we see all the time is because of the countersinking here with the extractor and the star, this can come loose over time, and if that comes loose enough, then this will lock up inside of the shroud, and then you got to really work to get that sucker out of there, and the gun is completely locked up, cannot be loaded. So there's a couple other challenges like that. If you've ever had the side plate off of one of these, actually I think it's on this side right here, but if you've ever had the side plate off on one of these, holy cow, man, it's a Swiss watch on the inside of there, as opposed to most semi-automatics that are pretty simple machines on the inside today. So, you know, one of the things that people say about these revolvers is say, well, they are just absolutely unfailingly reliable. I would say if you're buying a very high quality revolver, it is meticulously and spotlessly clean, and it is well stoked with good ammunition, and it is properly lubed, then you probably will get through at least 1 wheel, if not 2 wheels, without any problems. Of course, we see in a gunfight, you're never going to reload the gun, so you've only got 6. We'll talk about that in a minute. But a properly lubed semi-automatic pistol will do that too. For instance, this is Benvolio, my everyday carry gun. It's an HK P30 LEM tuned by Gray Guns with an RMR on it. Now, I will say, you know, we talk about extreme reliability. I've shot the front sight off this gun, but I haven't really even bothered because it was a custom height and I haven't been able to find a new one, and my RMR works like a top. But one of the things that I wanted to show you is that this is a gun that I'm carrying right now. I have unloaded it for the sake of safety and all those things. Been doing a little dry fire today, but this gun came out of the holster that was concealed carrying it, got unloaded. We did a little bit of pew-pew dry fire stuff, and I'm gonna reload it and put it back. Now, that's it. I'm gonna do that, and I'm just gonna show you exactly the condition that this gun is in by taking it apart. And if you look, let's see if I can get the light in there. This gun is rather filthy, quite frankly. And I know I'm gonna hurt the internet doing that, and people are gonna be all kinds of frustrated at me. You can see here in the slide, it's dirty. I mean, that's the bottom line. The gun is dirty. Now, it's well lubed, okay? And I would say this all the time. In semi-automatic pistols, dirty guns run just fine. It's unlubed guns that we have problems with. And this gun right now, gosh, man, I put about 700 rounds at Master Firearms Instructor through it, maybe 800, something like that. This coming weekend, next weekend, I have a class that will put 1,500 rounds through it or so, and guess what? I won't mess with it at all. Probably at the end of that weekend, I'll clean it. I'll lube it beforehand, but these guns run just fine and don't have that same problem. Nothing is gonna get underneath there and make those little problems. So that's a real distinct advantage. Now you might say, but John, you should really carry a gun that's clean, and I get it. I know I'm gonna hurt the internet with that, but frankly, I don't need to. This is just, it runs like a sewing machine. And so I don't worry about those things and making sure that the gun is clean. Also, I think a cleanliness problem with that is the fact that when you carry a gun, you put it on your body, whether that's strong side, appendix, ankle carry, I don't care. It's gonna get linty. It's gonna get, you know, warm from being close to your body. It's gonna get body oils on it. It's gonna get belly button hair in it. It's gonna get all that stuff in it and lint from your clothes and those things. So if you choose to carry a revolver, you better clean that sucker, and I would recommend cleaning it every single week. That means taking it apart, taking it out, cleaning everything out, making sure that it's well lubricated, but not over lubricated, and just perfect. If you're carrying a modern semi-automatic like an HK, I don't think that's a problem. Next, of course, capacity. You know, when we talk about carrying a revolver for self-defense, most people I know that actually do that or have done it, they carry revolvers, plural. barrel. This is where the idea of the New York reload came from. That the fact that you only have 6 here and reloading one of these suckers is an eternity. You're talking about, I mean, a really good, unless your name's Jerry Michalek, okay? If your name's Jerry Michalek, using moon clips and those kinds of things, okay, fine, you can get the gun reloaded quickly. For those of us that are mortals, it's not gonna happen. You're talking 3.5, 4 seconds minimum to get a speed loader in this guy if you have a speed loader on your person that is incredibly easily accessible. The fact is that I see on the main channel, most gunfights are 7 seconds or less for the entire gunfight. So you're talking about getting the gun out, getting the 6 in the gun, completely done, getting a reload and any more. You're just not gonna do that in reality. So whatever's in the gun is what you're gonna fight with. Here, I have 6. Here, I have 16. So which one do you want if you're gonna fight with whatever's in the gun? Now, you just gotta recognize, you might say, well, I'm really good with a gun. And maybe you are really high standards with a gun. I'm talking not you and me like mortals. I'm talking like Claude Werner, the tactical professor who ran the Elite Roger shooting school. Would I trust Claude with 6 in the wheel? Sure, I'd trust Claude with 6 in the wheel. I think that, you know, he's got such incredibly high skill and incredible understanding of gunfighting and incredible cool under pressure that he can probably get away with this. For mortals like me, I want 16 chances, not for the first bad guy, but again, when he brings a buddy, right? I think it's 5 rounds is 1 serving of bad guy. Here then I've got 1 and a little bit. I've got 1 and an appetizer. Here I've got 3 and an appetizer, and I'd rather have 3 servings of bad guy in the gun than 1. Now again, you might say, oh, a reload is still, you still gotta have. I don't carry one, and I think that the videos on the main channel show me that, but capacity really is a big change between the two. The other part of that in these semi-autos is people talk about the fact, well, you know, the semi-auto has problems with the magazine. Guys, that was really true in the 1980s. That was really even true in the 1990s. In the year of our Lord 2019, magazines are generally very good, especially if you take your carry magazine, you vet that magazine really well, you know this one works because it's been cycled, and you treat it like a baby. You don't take this carry mag to the range, drop it, beat the crap out of it and those things, because those feed lips might have challenges. You check it about every 6 months, you run a cycle through it about every 6 months, you make sure that it's really good by running it about 15 or 20 cycles when you first get it, then you load that in the gun, and that is your carry magazine, and you vet that all the time. If you do that, you'll almost never have a problem here. You'll almost never have a problem with this, and you'll get as many rounds as the magazine holds. That's a real advantage of semi-automatic pistols. Next thing, concealability. Notice here that you've got a thicker gun. This revolver, because it's got that big old cylinder, is thicker than a semi-automatic pistol. It just is. This is a full-size double-stack gun, and it is still significantly, if I put them together, thinner than a revolver, and thickness really matters for concealment. So when you're going to carry something like this is, you know, a K-frame, not a J-frame. It's a 6-shot gun, and so that's a little wider than like a little pocket J-frame is, but it's harder if you're going to put this on your person, and you know, if you're going to carry an appendix or you're going to carry it strong side or whatever, to conceal this gun adequately than it is something like this. Next thing, trigger. You know, again, when we talk about this, and we do it in our dry fire all the time here at Active Self-Protection, you got to do 3 things in order to shoot this gun accurately. You have to grip the gun, you have to sight the gun, you have to trigger the gun. You hear me talk about that all the time as a firearms trainer. Grip the gun, sight the gun, trigger the gun. Okay? So the thing is with the revolver, they're not built quite as well to grip and press the trigger straight to the rear. This is why you see all these attachments and different grip you know, pieces and those kinds of things to get your hand into a place that you can pull or press that trigger straight to the rear, because your hand wants to come up real high, so you almost have to kind of pull on an angle rather than straight back. Well, okay, so I'm left-handed, so I want to get that hand up nice and high, but what that means then for my second hand is now I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Now, of course, on a semi-automatic pistol, we go thumbs forward. You're not going to do that here with a revolver, because you're going to get your thumb in front of the forcing cone and end up with hot gases jacking your thumb up. So what you do instead is you do more of a thumbs together and then set this thumb over the back one. Now here, that's actually where that Crimson Trace laser grip as a lefty actually helps me. It's almost like a speed ledge, and then I can set this over on the top of it. But I will say I think it's a little bit more difficult to really get a good crush grip on a revolver than it is a semi-auto. Now let's talk about the trigger. Double action, a trigger on a gun like a revolver is going to be much heavier. Now this particular one, I'm just going to verify. You can see again, empty gun, no beans in the wheel there. So what you're going to see is this is a very well set up gun, and yet still I have about a 10.5 or 11 pound double action trigger. And for a defensive gun, that's what you're going to have. If you're going to have even a J-frame with a bobbed hammer or something like that, you're going to run this gun in double action. Now back in the old country, like way back when, you know, 1910s, 20s, 30s, they would teach those guys to get the gun out thumb cock it and then run this gun in single action. It's a very light, very crisp single action, but that's not how you should run this gun defensively. You're gonna run it in double action because it's not safe to carry single action, and that takes a lot of time to thumb cock the gun. So instead, you're gonna get that gun out, drive it out, and then go double action on all of your targets. Great. Okay, but now you've got a 10-pound trigger. Decent modern semi-automatic pistol, on the other hand, you've got like a 5 to 6-pound trigger, so you have a much lighter and easier time of maintaining your sights on the target while you press the trigger and the gun goes and does its stuff. It's a real advantage of a modern semi-automatic pistol. Now, an advantage of a revolver, if I have an ammunition malfunction. If I go, oh no, I need to shoot somebody, click, and I get a click instead of a bang, let the trigger out and press the trigger again, and that is all I need to do to fix that malfunction. Semi-auto, on the other hand, if I get a click when I want to bang, then we do our tap, rack, and reassess. So that takes more time. I think that's solved, frankly, by having really good defensive ammunition. If you have a really high quality defensive ammunition in your gun, the chances of that happening are, I mean, I would say in good modern defensive ammunition, less than 1 in 10,000. And so I think that that's such a minor problem. It is a problem, and so I'm not saying it's not, and it is an advantage of a revolver. But the chance of that happening in a defensive gunfight, if you carry high quality defensive ammo, and of course the two that I recommend are either HSTs or gold dots. If you have those, they are so high quality, your chances of having that are incredibly small. And the difference there, if you know that non-diagnostic linear malfunction clearance, right? You just know, okay, oh no, I got to click, tap, rack, and go. It does not take long, it takes you about a second. So as opposed to a revolver where maybe it takes you about a half a second. So the difference in about a half a second, a couple shots down range, when hopefully you've already put one down range, hopefully it wasn't the first one in the magazine, I think that chance is minimal. So all that said, which one's best to carry? I don't care. Carry which one you want. At the end of the day, if you want to carry a wheel gun, carry a wheel gun. I'm not going to be at your gunfight, and you're not going to be at mine. I see a lot of people defend themselves, and I see wheel guns work. You know, sometimes the gun can just work as a noisemaker. You can just shoot it in the air, pew, 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 and the bad guy scampers off. That's just the reality of things. For me and for mine, I think the advantages of a semi-automatic are so many and so numerous that I just couldn't imagine carrying a revolver unless I absolutely had to. There are some people in some countries that this is all they have. This is really all that's available to them is a .38 special revolver. All right, go for it. For other folks, I think that, man, for most of us, get a semi-automatic pistol. I think that's the way to go.